So, when did counseling stop being about problem solving? Well, not anymore. Introducing solution-focused counseling with the unlicensed counselor. And now, here's your host, Steve Moak.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of The Unlicensed Counselor. My name is Steve Moak. I am the Unlicensed Counselor, and as always, so grateful to be here on this beautiful, sunny Scottsdale, Arizona day. A little hot Scottsdale, Arizona day for 85 degrees, just to really rub it into our friends out there and the rest of the country. Boy, this is going to be an interesting topic today. This is actually a topic that I started to talk on when I briefly jumped ship to another studio before coming back to my home sweet home here at Star Worldwide. We're going to talk a little bit today about sex addiction, right? It's kind of a taboo topic. Anything kind of related to sex and different things like that oftentimes can kind of get a little scary and people get a little, short with their words and maybe don't want to talk about it in open. But things have changed out in the world. What used to just be kind of magazines and Playboys and hustlers you pick up on the street and maybe some prostitution and things like that. Now there's a lot of other ways that sex addiction can be impacting one's lives. And I just want to kind of pull back the kimono, so to speak, and start to talk about this a little bit more openly. So, this will be the conclusion, the true conclusion to the 4-part series on vices as well, too. So, but before we get started on that, I always want to take a minute and say thank you to our sponsors, and that starts with ShareTech. Go to betterdrugtest.com. This is the industry-leading at-home drug and alcohol screen. Look, if you listen to the show, we talk about addiction, drug, and alcohol use on here all the time. It just ties into so many of the topics that we have, mental health, general mental health, and behavioral health. So, I think it's important. If you have an idea or think that somebody may be using, the studies have shown that typically parents specifically will find out 18 months after their son or daughter has started using. So if you have that inkling, go to betterdrugtest.com, pick up one of these tests that's the most accurate on the market. It's going to allow you to tell exactly what substance your loved one has been using and the level of that substance. It tests for the most substances on the market. If you want to know or if you need to know, go to betterdrugtest.com and pick up one of those tests. I always like to plug the work that we're doing on the prevention effort as well, too. This is youth drug prevention that I'm involved with. The organization's called Hard Stop. Go to the stopstartshere.org. We do bold, edgy social media content around youth drug abuse prevention. Super important stuff. We're having tremendous success in terms of views and engagement. And what I see a ton on the content that we're creating is a lot of people sharing it out to their network. And I can't think of a better way to kind of endorse some of the content that we're creating over there than by people who share this out to their individual networks as well, too. So go to thestopstartshere.org. Give us a follow on all the social media channels, and I think you'll be impressed with the messaging that we're putting out there. Last but not least, give us a follow with the Unlicensed Counselor as well, too. Go to the YouTube channel. We're just still ticking our way up there slowly. Give us a follow on Instagram. Check out our Facebook page. Go to the website. And if you want to shoot me a note or have a conversation or question, or you just flat out disagree with me, give me an email at steve@theunlicensedcounselor.com. I personally respond to all my emails. It may take me a day or two to get back to you, but I'd love to kind of hear your point of view or what you think I missed or don't agree with. This is a dialogue. I think that we got to continue to have conversations around all these topics. I may not be right on everything, but I'm always willing to listen to another point of view and have a discussion about it. And maybe I'll bring it up here on the show as well, too. What better way to kind of keep this going? So, all right. So, we've been talking about vices. We've been talking about gambling. We've been talking about eating. We've been talking about all these different things. What I really want to dig in today is this topic around sex, right? And I want to dispel a couple myths right at the top of the show as well, too. But let's start by talking about what kind of sex addiction is, right? So sex addiction is kind of that compulsive behavioral disorder. It's a condition characterized by an overwhelming preoccupation with sexual thoughts, urges, or behaviors that are difficult to control, and this can cause distress or impairment in personal, family, or social situations, right? So that's just kind of your textbook definition of exactly what kind of sex addiction can be. Now, Steve, what exactly causes sex addiction? Well, the truth is we don't exactly know 100%, but it's believed to be a combination of biological, psychological, and social factors, right? These can include neurochemical imbalances, past trauma, early exposure to certain behaviors, and really dysfunctional family dynamics as well too can play a role in this, right? So, getting exposed to things early or having parents that are having issues as well too, all lead to these types of things potentially, contributing to what is commonly known as sex addiction as well too. But let's get a couple myths out of the way here, because again, I think that we hear this and we always think, okay, myth, sex addiction is really just a high sex drive. Wrong. The reality is it's about the inability to control sexual impulses despite negative consequences, right? Very similar, I always take it back to drugs or alcohol, the continuing to drink or use in spite of negative consequences, right? That's when you've crossed that line and things have become problematic and you continue to use and you still have all these mounting things. All right, here's another myth. Only men can suffer from sex addiction. Wrong. It affects everyone, right? Now, I think it may be more prevalent in men, right? I don't think that's going to surprise anybody. I mean, you go to a strip club and it's typically full of guys, right? I mean, I think there are female strip clubs as well too, but I don't know exactly if they're filled with the same kind of audience. I haven't spent a lot of time in these places, but from what I hear, they exist and, a little different clientele. We'll just say that. A next myth I want to dispel too is it's an excuse for bad behavior. Sex addiction is a recognized mental health disorder, and it does require treatment. I think where this comes up a lot is we'll see celebrities that get popped for cheating, right? Somebody gets caught, with a hooker out, a prostitute, or cheating on their wife with a castmate or something like that. And it's like, oh, the publisher, the PR person comes back and says, oh, he has sex addiction, he's entered into treatment, and we'll be addressing this. And it's like, it really does a disservice to the person who are actually going through this, who have those compulsions, who are the inability to stop, and who are really struggling with this, when this is more than likely probably just, a bad dude who's cheating on his wife. I mean, more than likely, right? I mean, maybe there's some of the case, but I just think that when they get swept under the rug like that, it's an excuse for this bad behavior versus the people who actually struggle and who have a problem with this. So I like to get some of those things out ahead of the time. Now, let's dig into some of the forms of kind of sex-related issues and addiction along sex as well too, right? And it's not just the physical act of having sex as well too. So number one is probably the top of everybody's list when I'm talking about this is pornography, right? So the excessive use of pornography. Look, I'm no prude. If you want to be and look at some of your stuff, like I understand that. Not my cup of tea, but I understand that some people do. But I also know many folks, again, particularly guys, who seem to go overboard with this on all the sites that are out there in the world. And kind of when you cross that excessive line is spending several hours a day viewing this, this pornography, and then seeking kind of progressively more extreme or detailed content along the way too. I mean, I think it gets joked around. I hear a lot of stand-ups talking about all the kind of porn stuff and things like that, and guys and girls, and it's like, we've talked about it so much that it started to just become like a little more accepted because I think, people just know that this goes on and that to the extremes, I'm sure not even everybody's aware. But if you're now spending several hours a day on this, again, it used to be magazines and things like that where you could look at some pictures and kind of put it away, be done if you did whatever you did. Now, I mean, there's entire sites and genres and specific. I mean, it's intense. And again, not my cup of tea, but I know other people that spend a lot of time on this, and it really creates problems within their lives and within their relationships as well, too. Which dovetails into point number two, naturally, masturbation, right? So, and again, we're talking about kind of when it becomes a problem, right? So that frequent or compulsive masturbation that causes physical discomfort or interferes with your daily responsibilities, where you physically feel compelled or cannot hold off the urge in order to do this. And I don't know if this is is a Harvey Weinstein type of situation or Louis C.K. I mean, there are lots of these. I'm just using those because those are pretty common examples where people were, masturbating in public or in front of people and things like that. Like, that's not normal behavior, folks. I mean, this is really odd behavior, and you have now crossed a line, and there's probably some, Hollywood privilege mixed into this as well, too. But that type of thing is not normal. And even if you aren't a celebrity, but you find yourself kind of compulsed, whether it's an airplane or you're going to school or whatever it is, recognize this, that's not normal, right? That's excessive, right? So these I'm trying to highlight when you've crossed kind of that line from if you're just masturbating to now you feel the compulsion to have to do so, right? Number three on the list is multiple sexual partners, right? I hear this talked a lot about on TikTok, Instagram, and things like that. You hear the term body count thrown out a lot, and you'll see little videos around body count, and, sometimes people will brag about it, or guys or girls, and I don't know, it really rubs me the wrong way. And again, I've done what I've done in my past, so I'm not going to throw any stones here, and I'm not exactly proud of my past history. Again, under the influence of drugs and alcohol, that's where my problems kind of came into it from. But now, people who are engaging in sexual activities with numerous partners, often without that emotional connection, right? And that leads to kind of the neglect of your actual relationships. And this also leads to significant risk factors as well, too, because a lot of times this could be this casual sex, whether you're meeting somebody on an app. And again, this could be heterosexual or homosexual, whatever it is. This crosses both things when we're talking about multiple sexual partners here. But this can lead to risky sexual behavior if you're having unprotected sex, the potential to pick up some type of disease, whether it's AIDS, STDs. There are a lot of things floating out there. And again, over my shoulder here is Old Town Scottsdale, where I used to run around as well, too. Thank God, knocking on wood here, not that I have to because I'm not participating in that behavior anymore, but this stuff is sitting right out there, and you just don't know that guy or gal that you're going to take home right now and just have that one-night stand or that fling or on a bachelor or bachelorette party. Look, if you're having these multiple sexual partners, you're opening yourself up to a lot of things. And that's really almost minimizing the emotional aspect of this as well, too. And I experienced that as someone who, when I was drinking was, a little too promiscuous myself. And it's like over time, like you just start to feel bad and you're low self-worth, and it just kind of just wears on you, and you just wake up and you don't know who's next to you, and you're foggy from the night before and just going, what did I do? What did I not do? It's just a whole area that if you're engaging in that, I wish I could help, share even more eloquently about what those feelings are like after you've been down that path multiple times. But just from a risk perspective in terms of the sex addiction part and kind of bringing it back to this, multiple sexual partners really can be one of those indicators as well, too. So number 4 on my list, cyber sex and sexting, right? Engaging in online sexual conversations or exchanges that affect real-life interactions and commitments, right? So are you on OnlyFans every day? Are you on OnlyFans every night, meeting up with this girl, spending 10, 20, 30, 50, hundreds of dollars per month and thinking that you're friends with some of these girls, right? That you're like chatting them up, or maybe you're buying articles of clothing from them. This is the stuff that goes on, right? If all of a sudden you're getting packages and maybe it's girls' underwears or different things like that. This stuff exists. And again, I'm just trying to point out, if you're seeing maybe your partner engaging in some of this behavior, this is some of the signs that you want to be looking for, that, hey, maybe we've crossed that threshold from just being kind of, experimenting a little bit to potentially problem. And really, this OnlyFans thing has blown up overnight. And again, not something I participate in, but I know a lot of people who do. And, I understand the allure from the girl side, because now they're not having to show up to that 9-to-5 job. They're staying in front of the cam and pulling in $50,000, $100K a month. Like, I get the attractiveness and the idea of that, but also the long-term impacts of that. And I guess I haven't really thought of it in terms of this podcast topic today, of the impact on those girls as well, too, but that could be a topic for another time. But if you find yourself or your husband, you're seeing receipts kind of piling up for this stuff, or maybe they're sexting other people and things like that, that's borderline, right? If you're a single guy and that's what you want to choose to do and how you want to spend your time, okay. I would argue that that's probably going to damage you in a way that it's going to prevent you from really trying to find, connection with a real person when you're out in the world. Because if you're constantly kind of having your sexual, quote unquote, needs met virtually, I think that's really going to impact your ability to connect with a real live person. And could you, down the road, you don't want to be single all your life, I would think. I wouldn't think so. I think you'd rather have the real thing than, potentially an OnlyFans who's just trying to extort you for another couple G's out of your old bank account there, right? Next up on the list, obviously the use of sex workers. I think that's a nice way of putting prostitutes, right? Hookers, right? If you're out there on the street, this still exists, by the way, and is still very common. What do they call it? The oldest profession in the world, right? Isn't that what it is? And, if you may not know this until your husband gets busted in a sting here, down in some sort of Central or South Phoenix, which has happened. I actually had a girlfriend of mine whose husband got busted. He was a person who was actually drinking and using too, got busted for soliciting a prostitute and then had to come home. Obviously, they're divorced now, but had to come home and explain to his wife, why he was out doing this and how long he had been doing this for as well, too. And then you got to worry about the consequences of what. Now she's like, well, what do I potentially pick up STD-wise, disease-wise or something like that because she's been sleeping with her husband. I mean, it's just like the layers of things that this creates and issues that it creates is just ongoing and ongoing. But again, bringing it back to sex addiction, if you are feeling the need to do this or you or a friend knows that this is part of their regular behavior, I would also add into this massage parlors. I know this is a big thing as well, too. Guys go out on business trips and maybe they don't want to cheat on their wives or something like that, but they're looking for the nearest little parlor with some lights that are open late, right? And they can sneak in and maybe get a little happy ending there while they're out of town and nobody's the wiser, right? So, look, I mean, these are all little things, and people think, oh, my husband would never do that. Yeah. I've been at these conferences and trade shows and things like that and hear these guys talk, and they've been married to the same person, they're sweethearts since high school and stuff. I'm not trying to, make everybody paranoid or every, wife that's out there paranoid, but this stuff does happen, right? This stuff does happen. So, again, bringing it back to the topic at hand, if they are participating in this one kind of seems like a no-brainer in my opinion. If you're out there, picking up hookers, prostitutes, sex workers, going and getting handies or whatever at the rub and tug place, I mean, yeah, we got a problem here, and I think that should be addressed, right? And then last but not least, this risky sexual behaviors, right? I haven't brought up strip clubs yet, and strip clubs is something I actively participated in quite a bit during my active drug and alcohol use. And it dovetails into this risky sexual situations, right? You get in there, you got a couple pops in you got a couple drinks, the girls sit down, you're buying them drinks, they're getting loose, maybe you're doing a little drugs in the mix here as well, too. All of a sudden, you're back in the champagne room, curtain closes, and you're doing whatever you do, right? Engaging in kind of these high-risk kind of sexual situations or potentially dangerous situations with little to no thought about the consequences that can come from this, that is another clear sign that you could have crossed over that line into some type of sexual addiction world as well, too. And I see this happen all the time, even to regular dudes who kind of go to a strip club with their buddies again or something like that, and all of a sudden, they get a little drunk, right? And the girl pulls them back there, and you don't know exactly what's going on. I'm not saying everybody's having sex with them, but 100% it does happen. 100% it does happen. There was just a story out here in Scottsdale about some of these clubs, bilking guys for, I think it was over $1 million. They were racking up their credit cards and things like that. Trust me, they weren't just giving out lap dances to rack up those types of charges, right? Let's be very clear about what that is. And I think there were 3 of them here in Scottsdale that just got busted for this as well, too. And that's not just Scottsdale. That's everywhere, all the place, all the time. That is what that industry does. And then I'm not even really going to touch on it today, the fact that some of these girls could be, sex workers. They could be kind of enslaved into some of this stuff. They could be forced by pimps and things like that. People think that's stuff that just happens in rap songs and things. No, there's a whole reality that's really sad. And I'm telling you, as a dad now of a daughter as well, too, it's like, holy hell. Like, just to have even thoughts like that is super scary. So, but again, if you're heading to the strip club, if you're engaging in kind of meetups on apps and things like that, whether it's guys or girls or whatever your cup of tea or both, right? Just know that, you could be crossing that threshold of what would be quote unquote normal kind of behavior and having fun and things like that, and into that problem, potentially kind of sex addiction realm as well, too. So, all right. So I think we get the picture. The general signs around sex addiction are just intense sexual fantasies, urges, and behaviors that consume a lot of your time and really kind of become uncontrollable, right? You continue to engage in these sexual situations despite social, financial, and emotional consequences. And I really do want to touch on the emotional part as well, too. I think it gets overlooked in this. People get into these situations. They think it's feel good. You kind of get high fives from the guys or your buddies as you're sleeping around and things like that. And there is a double standard in kind of guys sleeping around versus girls sleeping around, too. But the emotional toll that it takes on you after time, where you one day wake up and go, what the hell am I doing? Who is this? I don't even know who's next to me, and all that kind of stuff. It really does wear on you, but it's tough to convey that until you've really kind of been through that. But additional signs are just that withdrawal, if you're withdrawing from your social, your job, your recreational activities, because maybe you're chasing down some of your sexual behavior that you want to do. Again, that's crossing that line as well, too. And then lastly, just feeling that distress, anxiety, or irritability when you're unable to engage in your desired sexual behavior as well, too. So, okay, we've touched on signs, what it is. I think we have a pretty good idea on kind of what, normal, quote unquote, kind of sexual behavior is, and then when it crosses that line into potentially problematic. And I'm not here to tell you exactly what that line is, but I'm going to highlight where that is, and then you can be the judge on your scale. Honestly, if you're participating in some of this, you already know. Yeah, you already know. And maybe you're drinking and drugging and, you're not fully conscious aware to kind of understand the ramifications of that, but you have an idea, right? So now we'll talk about what does treatment look like? And then the last thing I want to touch on is how would you bring this up to your partner? How would you discuss this with your partner? I just want to give you a couple little tips and tricks and tools because maybe you want to stop this, right? Maybe you do actually want to stop this. So number one, I almost always start on my list of things to do is start with professional help, right? Get into therapy, ask your therapist around cognitive behavioral therapy, also known as CBT. That can be effective in treating sex addiction as well, too. CBT is a great tool, a therapeutic tool and approach that actually can be very beneficial in a lot of ways. So I encourage you to seek help if you're kind of going through some of this stuff. Find a counselor, find a therapist. If you can find one that specializes in this, even better, right? Even better to kind of sit down and be like, hey, I've got, what feels like could be sexual compulsion issues. Can we sit down and talk about it? Now, there are some medications that are out there that could help. Now, it's not a medication specifically for sex addiction, right? It's not like you're going to see a commercial run during the Super Bowl that says, hey, this is exactly what this treats for. But it could be for anxiety. It could be for stress. It could be a medication that treats those conditions, which then could help or assist with your sexual addiction or compulsion issue as well, too. Talk to your therapist, talk to your psychiatrist, probably the best person to talk to about that. There are support groups for this as well, too. I've been to AA, I've been to NA, I've been to CA, I've been to most of the A's. I haven't been to the sex addiction ones, though. I definitely did what I did, but I don't think there may have been moments where I kind of teetered on that line, but never had that compulsion like I did around drugs or alcohol. I'm very familiar with what that urge felt like, but I never quite felt that on the sex. So I didn't attend any of those meetings, but I do know they exist. So Sex Addicts Anonymous, it's a community support, very similar to other 12-step type groups where you can find support for other people who have gone through these issues. I don't know if those are gender-specific meetings or not, but you may want to inquire that just so we don't walk in and potentially set yourself back, because sometimes there can be predators in all of these types of things. Predators, I don't know, that's a strong word, but it does work where some people who are looking for new people to come in and maybe you can, unfortunately take advantage of them. That happens in, I think in everything. I'd just be more wary of it in a SAA group. And the last thing, treatment-wise, let's just think about education and lifestyle changes as well, too, right? Now, let's learn about what kind of healthy or healthier sexual behavior is and maybe start making some minor life adjustments as well, too. I mean, maybe we can at least cut out the OnlyFans, or we can stop going to the strip club, or maybe we can put some blockers on the porno sites and the porn hubs and different things like that. Little things that can start to kind of move you in a healthier direction as well, too. And this next part is kind of discussing with your partner. And the first thing I would say is make sure you choose the right time, find a quiet, private time, and let's start talking about openly and honestly what's going on, and kind of enlist some support or accountability. And that can be blocking some of those sites. Just like we talked about with gambling, you can kind of self-flag yourself like, hey, I got a problem with gambling. Now you can be like, look, can we put some type of software on here to block these sites? I don't want to do it. And make sure that you're getting it on the phone as well, too, because that's a real easy place for someone to kind of, if you want to call it a slip or relapse on pornography, it'd be an easy place to do it. And again, be open and honest. Share about your struggles and your desire to seek help, assuming you're being truthful about this. Put it out there. I've had a problem with this. It's been going on for some time. I don't like it. I'd like to kind of refocus my attention and eliminate this from my life, and I'd like some support in doing so, right? I'd also add, let's express some commitment around this as well, too. I mean commitment to your relationship and the willingness to work on the issues. Like, I know I've been doing this secretly. I'm sorry if I hurt you. I apologize. It's not something I want to do. I want to get treatment. Can we go to couples counseling? I'll go to, individual counseling as well too. I'll go to SACA, whatever it is, but show that commitment that you want to make change and be open and honest with your partner about that. And if you're doing this and you're seeking the support together, I think attending these therapy sessions together would be really beneficial. I think one-on-one is important, but I think actually making sure to bring in your husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend into these conversations as well too is an important part of this. Because there's a good chance that they may have been blindsided by this. This is one of those where I think you can kind of keep hidden a little bit longer. This is one of these where you can kind of keep hidden a little bit longer. You're on your phone, right? You're on your laptop. You're kind of pulling it up, or you're in a hotel room or something like that, and maybe you can do it. And once it crosses into the problem area, I'm sure there'll be some other signs, but still you can kind of keep it hidden a little bit more. So I think going to counseling together, and I think that'll help hopefully maybe prevent the divorce and things like that too, if maybe she's seen that you've blown all this money, or you're sexting, you're OnlyFansing, or whatever it is, right? So, and last thing is maintain communication throughout this entire process, right? If you do end up going to treatment, which is, exists and maybe should be kind of a consideration that you actually do need to do some inpatient treatment as well too. Make sure you're addressing if there are drugs or alcohol. If you find that you're always showing up or going to get a prostitute because you're high on meth or something like that, let's make sure we address all the underlying things that can contribute to this problem as well too. But keep in constant communication with your other one as well. Look, understand that sex addiction really is a complex disorder that involves more than just kind of being sexually active, right? It encompasses a wide and large range of behaviors and consequences, and this stuff can seriously impact you and your loved one's life as well. So take it with the seriousness that it should be treated with as well too. But as I kind of wanted to do this 4-part series, this is one that I really wanted to touch on with kind of the explosion of OnlyFans, with, the strip clubs, with sexting, with all the porn that's on the internet. This is one where like even good quote unquote good guys can really find themselves in a pinch all of a sudden. I could be meaning church, or that could be meaning, good earners or good dads. It just doesn't really discern or hold back when it comes back to these types of things as well too. So hopefully you got a little bit of something out of this. If you or a friend or a loved one is maybe struggling with some of these issues, or maybe they've had a conversation, share this podcast with them. Obviously, it's private. Nobody's going to ever know it. Maybe you can follow up, have a cup of coffee with them, and start to talk about this as well, too. So hope you got something out of this. This concludes the 4-part series on vices. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. My name is Steve Moak. I am the Unlicensed Counselor. Until next time, thank you very much.